Hello and welcome to OVERDRIVE. I'm Rohit Paradkar, and that bike, you probably guessed what it is. I don't like to take that name, but well, it is the Daytona 660. I hate to call it a Daytona for obvious reasons because I own the Daytona 675. This is now a new Daytona that's more of a sport tourer that is based on the Trident. So let's take a closer look because it's coming to India real soon. Right then, so this is the Triumph Daytona 660. Believe it or not, that's what they are calling it. You can see the name tag right there. And in terms of the styling, it is going to be a bit of a mixture between what we've seen with the real Daytona, the previous Daytona 675, and a little bit of the new Triumph Tiger Sport 660. So you get that dual headlight combination, the split headlight combination like we saw on the previous Daytonas, but it's got a more angular design to it like we've seen on the Tiger Sport 660. So what do you think about the look? Let me know. Okay, so let's leave the jokes aside and the name aside. I really like the design. It's a nice, sharp, angular design, good for the modern times with a bit of that old school charm to it. You're still going to see those stick out turn blinkers, LEDs of course, no integrated stuff here, no flush mounted LED indicators, and that still looks quite nice. And then you move to the side, you see this nice floating panel. It's a nice design element. In fact, let me go over to the other side and show you how it looks from afar. So that floating panel, it's a nice design element, adds a bit of that racy touch to it, and it's got that proper, lean forward stance with all those sweeping lines. They converge nicely into the tank. The tank also has plenty of sculpting. So unlike the flattish profile that you had on the tank of the previous Daytona or even something like the Street Triple, here you get these recesses where the handlebar goes in, because the handlebar, mind you, is also a little taller. It sits a little taller, and you get these recesses in the tank as well to grip onto, because this is a sport tourer, but they are trying to achieve a more of a multi-purpose application with the Daytona 660. So even if you want to do those occasional track days, you should be able to do that, which is why you get these recesses right here. You also get a recess over here so that you can, really duck down properly, hide behind that visor, and still have some fun on the track. So let me show you the seating posture on this motorcycle. Like I said, it's not going to be too committed, but it's definitely going to be sportier than the Trident, but not too committed like the previous Daytona 675. It's still going to let you ride in a more relaxed manner if you want, much like the Ninja 650 that is one of the primary competitors for this bike. And moving it around, it doesn't really feel all that heavy, and that's the main aim with this motorcycle, right? They want to keep it accessible. They want to give you that super sport styling in a more accessible package. Now, one design element that I do not like, some people will appreciate it, but I don't like it, is this panel right here. So it mimics the presence of a proper perimeter frame, but it isn't. It's actually plastic, because let me remind you, let me show you the Trident for reference. The Trident has a tubular frame. So this particular frame element is what that panel on the Daytona tries to hide, right? So that is why that panel comes in and mimics the effect of, or the presence of, a perimeter frame. Behind that is, of course, the familiar engine, the 660cc engine. You also see the big 660 tag on the bottom. Now, the other difference is going to be that it's also going to give you a different riding mode, a new riding mode, which is the sport mode. So on the Trident, you get the rain and the road, of course. Here you also get the addition of the sport mode. Again, highlighting the sportier intent of this motorcycle. Now you also get a relaxed foot peg for your pillion that's again mounted in a very similar fashion to the Trident. It's mounted on the subframe right there, you can see that. And the subframe element is not as exposed as it is on the Trident because of the panel that you see here. It's also got a split seat design. So you get that relaxed foot peg, you get a biggish rear seat for your pillion, but it's still going to be a split seat design to go with that super sport styling that the Daytona 660 is trying to achieve. At the rear, you're going to get the stubby tail, again reminiscent of the Trident. The Trident in itself had hints of the original Street Triples taillight design to it, and that continues even with the Daytona, but it's definitely not as pointy as the Daytona 675 when it comes to the rear end. You still get that very big bracket at the rear that is going to hold the turn blinkers, the registration plate, the reflector, etc. And then you get this little panel right here to avoid the spray from reaching the pillion or the rider when you're riding in wet conditions. Now this bike right here is equipped with the Michelin Power 6 tires. It will be interesting to see what tires come to the India spec model given all the legislative concerns right now with imported tires. Now you get that gull arm, swing arm, again something similar to what we've seen right there on the Trident, and a similar underbelly exhaust as well. So that is going to continue. These are the rider foot pegs. Now this is where things get a little tricky. They are not as rear set as what they were on the original Daytona. This geometry is still very similar to what it is on the Trident, right? And that is what is going to make for that relaxed riding posture, relatively relaxed riding posture, if you were to compare the Daytona 660 to the Daytona 675. So what you do get is a clip-on handlebar that you see right here. Now this is sitting on top of the Showa SFF BP forks, big piston forks, but non-adjustable. So you can't adjust the forks because it's also built to a cost. So no adjustability there. So if you're taking it to the track, you will have to probably play around with the fork oil if you think it's too squishy. We'll find out how it behaves out on the road and maybe even on the track when Triumph India hopefully has a ride or media vehicles planned for us. I don't know if that is going to happen and when it's going to happen, looking at how we are still waiting for the Street Triple RS more than a year after the international press ride, right? So I hope Triumph India is listening to this, and I hope they make amends. It's a bit ridiculous that people are having to wait for the reviews of the Indian models or the models that are sold in India. Anyway, at the rear, you're going to get that monoshock with preload adjustability. That's the only adjustability that you get. So for you, your pillion, and maybe if you add some luggage or whatever, you will be able to adjust the preload. Now, we've seen that the Trident suffers from a really low ground clearance, and that is going to continue even with the Daytona 660. Even if you jack up the preload, there is still going to be a bit of a concern with the ground clearance on offer, especially with that fairing. Now you're definitely going to have that. But the appeal of this motorcycle is, of course, the faired bodywork, the super sport inspired styling, and of course that triple cylinder engine that makes for some sweet soundtrack. Also a healthy output for the kind of engine this is. Now yes, we've said that in the past that the engine is quite nice, but it lacks a bit of that grunt, it lacks a bit of the character that you get from the bigger Triumph triple engines. And that might just continue with the Daytona as well, even with that uprated power, because at the end of the day, it's still the same 660cc motor, pardon me, and you know, it's still just putting out a little bit more power than the Trident. But I'm not going to discount the riding dynamics just yet. I'm not going to discount all the power just yet till we ride the motorcycle. We are going to be doing that very soon, because we hear that the Daytona has already arrived with Triumph India. They are in the process of getting it homologated, and the motorcycle should be here really soon. I'm guessing that the announcement might just come in the next few weeks, and hopefully it will be launched in time for the festive season, or at least by Diwali, you should be able to get the first deliveries of the motorcycle. No adjustability for the windscreen, but being the kind of motorcycle that it is, there will be aftermarket options. There will be the double bowl visors and all of that. So at least cosmetically, you should be able to do it up quite nicely. And then there will be the options of maybe changing the exhaust, maybe playing with the engine maps, all of that, the fueling, etc., to get some more power out of this, maybe past that 3-digit figure and get more oomph. For reference, the Daytona 675 put out about 126, 128 PS, and that was an absolute hoot to ride. In fact, still is so many years down. We recently did a video about the Daytona, and how the super sport segment has evolved with the new ZX6R, or how much has it really evolved. So definitely take a look at that video if you haven't already. And as for the Daytona 660, let me know what are your thoughts. Like I said, by itself, the motorcycle looks quite good. I believe Triumph should have just called it an ST or a Sprint 660 to go with its sport touring credentials, not really capitalized on that Daytona name. But that's exactly what they're trying to do, capitalize on that name, because the Daytona, the way we knew it, is not going to make a comeback. So this is what people want today, a super sport looking motorcycle without the aggression in the riding posture, without the commitment in the riding posture, something a bit more relaxed. And by that, it goes up against the likes of the Kawasaki Ninja 650 and the Honda CBR 650R. So those are going to be the primary rivals for the Daytona 660. They've already realized that they need to price it a little differently. If you look at the current dismal sales of the Trident and even the Tiger Sport 660, those bikes parallelly seem to be on a discount, and they're still not really moving. They're still not really doing big numbers in India. So the Daytona still has a lot going for it thanks to that styling, but they will really need to get the pricing spot on to be able to sell this well. Because again, let me remind you, the full-blown Kawasaki ZX6R, a proper super sport, a proper quintessential super sport, is coming at a really tempting price tag even today. So the Daytona 660 really needs to come at a proper record-breaking price and not something that Triumph has been doing with their 660s lately. So it really needs to be priced well to be able to leave a mark on the market and maybe do some big numbers. But those are my thoughts. Let me know what are your thoughts. I'll be more than intrigued to know, what do you think about the Daytona 660? Where do you think it should be priced? What would be the right price for this motorcycle? Let's be realistic here. And any constructive feedback that you have about the bike, about this video, about Overdrive in general, put that in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this one. Until the next one, take care.